afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Under attendance, all of our trustees are present in the room. We're waiting on one student trustee. And under approval of the agenda, before I ask for a motion, I've talked with the director. Well, there was a conversation between the director, myself, the vice chair, and the chair of the policy committee, and we've decided that for balancing of our workload between this meeting and the next meeting in 2 weeks, we would like trustees to agree with us to defer L5 until November 7th. Our next meeting is only 2 weeks away, and we created the agenda more than a week ago, and we just had topics. We didn't actually have the reports in hand, and it's turned out to be kind of a long agenda. So we thought, since November 7th, we already know isn't overloaded, we thought that it would be in our best interest if we defer that to November 7th. Trustee Burgess?
That is even though it's the first Tuesday, that is a regular board meeting because the next one's the org.
The changes.
So it's not a committee, so it's at a regular board meeting. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And I forgot to mention, for those who are watching the live stream, if it's your first time watching, I try to explain that at 5 o'clock, we just call the meeting to order, confirm our attendance, confirm our agenda, and then we leave until 7 o'clock when we'll come back to actually go through our agenda. So for those who are watching, I hope that helps to explain. And I'm going to give you also a heads up with regard to the agenda that I just recently decided on item L6. I am going to rule it out of order, and I will speak to it at that time, and then it's up to the trustees whether they accept my ruling or not, and I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. So I'll speak to that. I'm just giving you a heads up now. So with that, I need, with the deferral of L5, I need a motion to approve the agenda. Trustee Cook, Trustee Leclerc, all in support. Any? So on the motion? Okay. Okay.
I just want to make sure I have no problem deferring the L5, but did you said you'll speak to it knowing that we're approving it with L6, but you're going to rule it out of order after we approve the agenda? I just want to know what I'm
because that's
saying.
How we've always done it. I'm just going by past practice. So when we get to L6, I would speak to it with my decision.
Okay,
I will be challenging it though,
yeah, that's
so
fine.
maybe we should.
So my question is, are we approving the agenda just with the deferment of L5, but L6 is still on there?
It is.
Okay, thank
you.
And
I will speak to it with my decision. And that's just following past practice. Okay? So were there any opposed to the agenda? Because I saw the hands in support. Sorry? I didn't see any. No. That's carried. Thank you. And we need a motion to convene to the committee of the whole private session. Sorry?
I thought you said you were discussing L6.
No?
Oh, not until later?
Until
it's still on the agenda. Okay, yes. Thanks.
So the motion to convene to committee the whole private session, Trustee Nelson, Trustee Sipkar, all those in support. That's carried. Thank you. We're recessed until 7 o'clock. Thank you very much. like to reconvene our public session meeting and welcome everybody here tonight and those that are on the phone. We already announced our attendance. All our trustees are present, and we approved our agenda with the deferral of item L5 to the November 7th meeting. And at this time, I'd like to call upon trustee Ron Leclerc to give the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous people who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory, within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you very much. I would just like to take a minute off the agenda here to welcome our new superintendent, Chris Boulay. Mr. Boulay is joining us today. It's his first day with our board, and he started at 8:30 this morning with breakfast with all our union leaders and his first board meeting all on his first day. So just to tell you a little bit about him, Superintendent Boulay, he's our Superintendent of Human Resources, but he's been a school administrator for over 20 years. He's been a teacher, he's been a principal, he's been a vice principal in elementary, secondary, and alternative continuing education schools. He has experience leading in both urban and rural settings and in serving Indigenous students and parents. He most recently served as District Principal of Human Resource Services with the Trillium Lakelands District School Board, and prior to that, for the first part of his career, he was with the Upper Canada District School Board. So we'll all give him another round of applause and welcome Superintendent Boulay to our GECDSB community. So, we tried to stick him with the bill for breakfast this morning, but the director graciously offered to pay. So with that, we're going to continue on our agenda. Item E, declarations of conflict of interest. I am going to declare, because I could be perceived to have a conflict on item L7, in that I'm negotiating with the Caboto Club on a future event on behalf of a charitable organization, so that could be perceived as a conflict. So I'm declaring that and won't be participating in that item. Anyone else? Anyone else? No? Thank you. Actions of our Committee of the Whole private session. Trustee Cook.
Thank you. Under new business, F1, looking for someone to move F1. Trustee Leclerc and Trustee Sipcar. All in favor? Any opposed? That passes. Thank you.
And then Trustee Buckler has a previous item to bring forward under that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to bring forth item D from the October 3rd private session meeting. I'm looking for a mover, please. Trustee Leclerc, seconder. Trustee Sipcar, all in support.
Can I ask what matter it is?
It was personnel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item G1 and G2 are both minutes, a public board meeting of September 19th and a special board meeting of September 26th. Someone like to put them on the floor? Trustee McKinley, Trustee Leclerc. Any questions on the minutes? I'll take the vote. All those in support? Any opposed? No, those are carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Anyone? Don't see anyone. Thank you. So we'll move right into our student trustee presentation.
Good evening, everyone. In the month of October, Student Senate held our third meeting at Leamington District High School. It was great to see the senators get better acquainted with each other, and the senators shared a great deal of excitement about the new possibilities of all school events that they plan on doing, which many of them have already planned and finalized at their schools. Student council grade representative elections are still underway at some high schools, and we discussed the possibility of myself and Colin doing in-person visits at high schools to get a better ground level perspective of the student experience at each high school. And also, a part of our student trustee mandate is to promote the role, which we'll be doing at those schools. And we have introduced our committees to our senators, one of which are the Student Trustee Election Committee, the second one being the Student Leadership Conference Committee, which we've started planning for and we are thrilled to host. And our new committee, which is the Student Senate Committee. We'll be discussing some best practices at the Student Parliament Committee, which specifically focuses on sharing best practices with student senators to bring back to their schools and their student parliaments for the greater benefit for everyone. And adding on, me and Colin will also be attending the Ontario Student Trustee Association's Fall General Meeting, which will happen very soon this week, where student trustees from across Ontario will gather to discuss ideas and goals for the year. Colin will be joining the public cabinet under the Vice President of OSTA, under the Vice President of OSTA's public education. As for myself, I am excited to announce that I'll be starting my new elected position as the Chair of Student Wellbeing on OSTA's executive team. Thank you very much.
Congratulations on that. Sounds like you've been really busy. Question, Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you, I'm wondering, we heard that the student trustees have great plans for representing their high school students. I'm wondering if there's anything there for the family of schools or the elementary students, because they also represent them.
Colin, you'd like to answer that?
That is in our plan to talk to specifically grade 7 and 8 students about leadership coming soon. Specifically at certain elementary schools in our districts. So that will be on our agenda after we touch base with some high schools.
Thanks.
Thank you. You've got a lot going and it's only October. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very ambitious. And is there a second part to the presentation? Sorry, I missed a question. Trustee Nelson, sorry.
Thank you very much, student trustees. How do you determine which schools you will go to promote your role?
So currently, if a senator reaches out to us personally, we will go to that school, we'll contact the principal through our liaison, and they'll reach out to them, they'll make arrangements, and we could either go to their civics and careers classrooms or have a presentation for the whole school or a part of that school in general or the leadership class. So that'll be done through our liaison and anybody contacting us in general, and we'll refer them to our liaison. From there, we could go through with the process.
And the second part of the presentation, okay.
The student of the month for October is Melina Zargo, a grade 12 student at Tecumseh Vista Academy. Melina is a consistent role model for this month's theme of reliability. As a high school senior juggling a full course load along with her extracurricular activities, Melina is one of the most reliable students one may ever encounter. She is a member of Tecumseh Vista's girls' basketball, soccer, and softball teams, and her teammates refer to her as the team mom. She comes prepared with extra Band-Aids, sports tape, and water, and always asks her teammates if they're set and prepared for their game or practice. Melina is incredibly selfless and is always thinking 2 steps ahead for herself and for others. She always offers a ride to her teammates to make sure that they don't miss out on an opportunity to play the game they love. Melina's teachers admire her work ethic. They appreciate that she gets assignments and projects done ahead of time and is always ready to help a classmate who may be struggling. Teachers describe her as their go-to student when they need a favor or an extra set of hands. She is positive, confident, boosting teammate and classmate who is happy to help no matter how busy she may be. Melina is someone everyone can truly rely on. Congratulations, Melina, on being selected by Student Senate as the October Student of the Month.
So congratulations, Melina, from the trustees. Do you want to come up here for a picture? And if you have family with you, they're welcome to come up. We have no delegations for this meeting, and there was no one signed up on the speakers list. So we're going to move forward to new business, item L1. Would someone like to put that on the floor? Trustee Cook, Trustee Leclerc, and make a presentation from Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The Ministry of Education announced the 2023-24 Capital Priorities Program on August the 14th, with submissions due to the Ministry no later than October the 20th. Similar to prior years, school boards have been invited to submit business cases to address their most urgent pupil accommodation needs. Administration has worked extensively with Watson and Associates to identify and assess the viability of various business cases to meet accommodation pressures and facility condition issues facing the board. To that end, 4 business cases outlined in the board memo are being proposed for submission to the ministry. Administration feels that these 4 business cases are strong and meet the ministry's requirements. The Capital Priorities Program requirements are much more extensive this year. Specifically, we are required to submit written business cases, including the scope of work, project milestones, and a demonstration of why alternatives are not feasible. Site identification, design plans, and cost estimates must also be submitted. A consultant was obtained to obtain the cost estimates. Submissions are also to include Excel templates, which have the space template, enrollment projections, and joint childcare submissions if those are required. Schematic designs for the school building using the ministry's design catalog or a recent school repeat design tendered since 2021 must also be provided with each business case. And as well, the board is required to submit a long-term growth needs template that's linked to the Ontario Housing Action Plan and municipal growth plans as required as well. A summary of the business cases on a rolling 5-year schedule is included in your package so that you can see what was submitted in prior years. Space templates are also included with the board memo, along with the long-term growth needs template. As well, we have Christy Kent with us. She is with Watson and Associates. She's available on the telephone to assist administration in answering any questions that you have. Christy is a registered professional planner, and she's accredited with the Canadian Institute of Planners. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Do we have questions from trustees? Well, okay, we'll start with Trustee McKinley.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just wondering about Marlborough. It was on the list for several years, and I noticed it is not currently on the list. So if I could get an explanation of that for the people in the West End. Thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I'll start that explanation, and I'm sure Superintendent Allender and Ms. Hinchliff would be able to add in as well. Some of the challenge that we have with Marlborough is that it is a heritage listed school, which makes additions to the school or any construction related to that school very, very challenging, cost prohibitive in some respects. We've had this experience when we built James L. Dunn, and we see the renovation work that we had to do with the masonry at Kennedy Collegiate. So it's very challenging to do. While there is adequate space, I just think the business case itself wasn't well supported. With that, if Superintendent Awender or Ms. Hinschuff would like to add in, that would be wonderful too.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Marlborough is difficult because the City of Windsor does not support any demolition of heritage-listed buildings. The Ministry of Education struggles with changes to heritage designated or heritage listed buildings because the costs are so unknown. An example they gave at a recent conversation was a $20 million high school that was approved by the ministry, which is a heritage property, is now running $50 million. And the ministry struggles really a lot with those things. Because Marlborough is not listed here for those reasons, I think it's difficult to do. It's difficult to even do a Campbell solution there because of the way the school is laid out. I think the costs are too unknown at this time. Also, we've spent, because of these reasons, we've spent a lot of money at that school, improving that building, new heating system, new windows, new roofing, we've gone through all the masonry, new doors, new lockers, and we continue to do work in that school because we realize that there's not going to be the ability or the easy ability to replace it.
Supplementary on the same thing? Okay.
Just wondering about the addition that was put on by the city years ago for a community center that hasn't been in use for probably decades now. Are we able to actually utilize that space or not? What's going to happen there? Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, the board actually procured the community center from the City of Windsor, so that is board property. So we will evaluate that as we look at all our other capital priorities in terms of use of that space for the school itself. It's not being used at this time, no.
Trustee Burgess, your question?
That was my question, but more is the point. I'm going to say that we have here 3 years that Marlborough was there, and the assumption was that there was a case to go forward. And what I hear is that it's futile or not at this time. What kind of hope is that for those kids and staff who are in buildings that are going to need constantly renewal? The $20 million the anecdotal, thing of $20 million that has escalated to 50. We don't know the parameters around that. We don't know what the $20 million was a bad quote in the beginning or whether because of supply chain and simple inflationary costs, et cetera. That's the reality. So my question is about advocacy. We have 3 years where we were convinced that Marlborough needed a replacement school and that we needed to advocate at the ministry. We have still old stock schools. We're not the only ones in the province. What are we supposed to do? Just give up? And the message to the kids at Marlborough is that we'll just keep patching up and fixing and replacing what we can. But you're stuck. We can't get any better than this. It just seems completely unfair.
Thank you for that. Through you, Madam Chair. I try to deal with what I'm given. So I try to treat children, students the exact same way no matter what school they're at. So the children at Marlborough have the same amenities, have the same programming, have the same type of classrooms as any other school. And we do not compromise because the building is old. They have had more investment than other schools because of the fact that they're older. And I think we've done a lot there. There's probably a lot more that we can do. and make it as similar, if not as good as our new schools. There is that ability, and we continue to invest in these buildings because we know it's like Kennedy. It's exactly like Kennedy. There's no one in this room that's going to say, let's replace Kennedy. But it's the exact same situation as Marlborough. It's a heritage school that the City of Windsor will not support the demolition of. It would be, we would have to go through a James L. Dunn scenario, and at this point, the board does not have the capacity or the dollars to be able to address Marlborough. So we make sure that those kids have the same amenities, the same programming as any other elementary school in our system.
Thank you. Trustee Leclerc?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when I look at this list of 4, I see that we're asking for additions on 2 brand new schools. And one of them will be the second addition on a brand new school. So, you know, and given the quite clear evidence that Windsor-Essex County is growing substantially, and you look at the situation in LaSalle's actually going through the process of approving a secondary or a primary plan, whatever you call it, with the potential for 17,000 new homes. What, how much does the ministry actually consider the amount of growth that's anticipated in our area when they are actually looking at granting? Because quite frankly, Legacy Oak Trail, when we built it, we knew it should be twice the size of what we built. And, you know, our prophecy's coming true. How much does it take for them to understand that in order to get it right, we need to build based on forecasts of where this community's going? I know it's a tough question, but I just want to throw it out there because it's certainly, it's not efficient the way we're doing it.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I'll start, and I'm sure Julie will finish. She does that so well for me. It's true. I agree 100% with what you're saying. This is the first time where the ministry is now asking school boards to provide long-term growth plans, which we've done with working with Watson and Associates in conjunction with their meetings with municipalities on secondary hamlet plans and development plans that they are currently working on. The ministry previously has not really considered that future growth development. I think now they are, and I know to the extent that we're developing business cases today, if we wanted to put an additional school in LaSalle, for example, we were encouraged to go ahead and put a business case in for it. But through our conversations with the municipality, they're not sufficiently advanced enough in their planning, nor have they set aside any land that's sufficient for a school that we would need. And the ministry is requiring site identification, and they're requiring like a number of, we don't even know, like services, all these kinds of things. And they want shovel-ready projects as well. Built, shovel in the ground, and the school is up in 2 years. So some of it's a little bit challenging. So what we've been doing is at least we've been, you know, putting forward, you know, additions where we can in school sites. We're working with Watson and Associates. We're looking at putting potentially options on property in LaSalle to come see growth areas where we know we're going to need a new school, so that when the next round of business cases come, we already have the site developed, and when it's at a point where it's appropriate to build the school, we'll be prepared to do so.
I'm going to add a little to this. When the business case for Legacy Oak Trail was submitted, LaSalle did not have the capacity to build a single house more. They were at the position where none of their stormwater management plan was even close to being able to support additional development. So that business case was submitted based on that because there was no anticipated growth. And then the town of LaSalle, doing their due diligence, fixed the problem, which caused the addition and the new addition. But at the time, and this is years ago now, they could not build another home in LaSalle. So that's what we had to submit to the ministry. And I just wanted to add that little bit of information. So it's not like we're not planning ahead. The municipalities have to kind of catch up to get there. And with CN Watson now on board, they're having regular conversations with the municipalities in a way that we've never been able to kind of connect to. So now they know what's coming, they know the timing, they know how many yields out of these processes and out of these developments that we've never been able to tap into. So this going forward, I think, will be much better informed.
Trustee Zipcar?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So I kind of wanted to just step back from any of the individual cases and ask a couple of questions around more the more general focus. I think it's on page 17. It says the Nexstar Energy EV battery plant is scheduled to open in 2025. It's kind of just in there as a small paragraph. How much has that factored into all of these priorities? Because obviously it is located close to the Windsor-Tecumseh boundary, but that doesn't mean that everyone will live right there, right? People choose lots of different municipalities across. Is there any consideration to how that population growth with 2,500 new workers by 2025, has there been any consideration on all of these priorities I guess moving forward? You've kind of answered it already in the sense that like you can only put forward business cases, but I know that with your last response, obviously there's a bit more proactive, forward thinking through Watson and Associates. And so I'm just wondering how come this was only mentioned in the one priority when really it's kind of almost a foundational fact of our area. So I'm just curious if those conversations have been, are being had.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I don't know if Christy is on the phone and can address some of that question. I don't think it wasn't intentional specific to not being foundational. Of course, it's foundational. People that work at that plant have the potential to live anywhere in Windsor-Essex County. It was put in that spot because it was specific to just the general area of that school overall. But I don't, Christy, if you can have some dialogue regarding the planning projections and development.
I don't know if she's on mute.
I don't know. I'll have to follow up for you specific to that.
Thank you.
Sorry, do you have a supplementary if that's okay, or no?
Okay.
Okay. And then so on that priority of the Forest Glade Public School, specifically on page 16, it says over the 10-year projection horizon, enrollment is expected to climb to almost 800 students, 796, from the existing on the ground capacity, it looks like from 776. So if I'm understanding the Forest Glade Public School priority, it doesn't seem like it's for increased enrollment. I think that's kind of what my other question was getting at. It's more to just replace the school. And I see shaking head. So I guess my question is that a problem?
Through you, Madam Chair, one of the areas that we can submit a business case for is for facility condition index. And there's a significant cost to infilling the school because it's an open concept. In the larger school, it's 2 separate buildings. It's 1 school administrator. It is 1 custodial staff member. And so there's an opportunity to create, and there's land already identified. It can go on the existing site. So there is an opportunity to address the condition of that facility by building new and redirecting our school condition improvement funding to other areas where there's a high priority across the system. And the costs that we are looking at investing in that school to address all of those concerns relative to the cost of a new school is it's not substantial, that difference. So that's why we felt that the case was important. relative to some of the enrollment increases that we're expecting.
The second question, Trustee Burgess.
I did ask about Marlborough, so it's a different question. Second question.
Anyone else for the first time? Okay, so my question is about the Forest Glade situation, because that was at the top of the list, if I'm remembering correctly, for several years. And I know that the community was really hoping to hear one day that that was going to be approved. And so the other 4 of the 5 are for school additions. This one's for a school replacement. Is there any possibility that it might get some attention from the ministry, even though it's number 4 on the list, where it used to be number 1? And I know that the community was looking forward to this because it was number 1 for so long.
Did you want it? Okay.
Well, it's not number 4, it's number 2. If you look at the list. It is number 2. And I think the struggle... Priority 1 is the Roseland Glenwood additions. Priority 2 is Forest Glade. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, those are just the attachments. My apologies. I wrote it wrong.
Thanks for clarifying that, but okay, that helps, but
Okay.
Go ahead.
And I think we've tried Forest Glade, and this is near and dear to Superintendent Armstrong's heart. She keeps pushing for this one. We've tried several times, and the feedback from the Ministry of Education is that it's a difficult case because of the surrounding schools and enrollment projections in the surrounding schools. My understanding is that even though there's a moratorium on school closures, they consider surrounding schools, and surrounding schools is within like kilometers and kilometers. So the Roseville, Coronation tend to influence the case. And that's a bit of the problem. So the ministry has very specific requirements in terms of the mathematical calculations that they're going to do to show that this is a viable business case. So it's all about 105% like 105% enrollment in year 5. And those cases may not even make it. It may be the 110, 120% cases that are going to make it. The minimum is 105. In Forest Glade, we've done a great job with Eastview Horizon. It's very well populated. Its growth, it's excellent, but we have to ask for the school that will make that area over 105%. And the ministry has come back a couple of times and said, Roseville, Coronation. I think that's our problem, and it's kind of like a catch-22 for us, I'm afraid. But we continue to move forward trying to get that business case just on replacement and building renewal.
And just to add to that, we wouldn't put forth a business case that we didn't feel met the ministry requirements. We feel that this one does, or else we wouldn't submit it. And we have acknowledged too, there may have to be some boundary reviews that are completed as part of that to kind of balance some of the enrollment that might be at Eastview as opposed to what needs to be happening at Forest Glade. And in addition to that, for example, when we had approval for Legacy Oak, that was not our number 1 choice. It was like number 4, number 5 on the list, and that's what the ministry chose. So while they asked school boards to rank them, I don't know that I would get too worried per se about that.
Thank you very much. And Trustee Burgess, your second question?
Thanks, Madam Chair. My concern is about the use of the word right-sized replacement. I think that in the past, whenever we've heard that, that meant that we're consolidating or we've taken a look at something and we've made a prediction that we can actually be most efficient in putting the space template for the school to fit the enrollment that we anticipate once the construction is complete. But I think I'm not trying to be critical of what we've done necessarily with the constraints that we have, but we've never had a school that was right-sized. So I look at that. The proposed replacement school this is for Forest Glade, will facilitate the construction of a right-sized replacement facility. I just reject the adjective. What it is a snapshot of what we know, and we're going along with a formula that has not delivered the goods. We are adding 2 new schools. It's more expensive to do it. It doesn't, when you're retrofitting and adding, my question is, do we ever advocate for something where we are putting a bit more money up front so that we can go up instead of out? Number one, like better footing so that we can put another, we did that, I know, at Begley. We talked about doing it at Lakeshore Discovery, and I think we abandoned it there or something. But do we ever, because, we have a new school that's going to be opening in Kingsville. It's not going to be right-sized. At what point do we say enough with the portables and we actually build in the initial construction with an opportunity to put an addition on without expanding the footprint necessarily, and are begging for portables? We're always, when we approve the architect's thing, one of our first questions is, where do the portables go? It's absurd. This is absurd. So I'm looking for something where we can advocate better so that we can move the political arm, where the capital finance branch, where they can say, we're actually trying to be more efficient. We're actually trying to save money and time and headache by delivering a building that we cut the ribbon on, knowing that we're going to need more, but we've already acknowledged that in the construction.
I don't know that there's an answer to that, but I do recall that in some recent architectural plans and in the building of some of the schools that we've had, I do recall discussions about building up instead of out, and that there were in the designs, I can't name specific schools, but I remember that actually being presented to us as a future option to build up. I just can't remember exactly any example, but I do recall that being a discussion.
I can think of one, and that's William Davis. They built the first floor year 1, they built the next floor year 3. That's the only time I've ever seen where we've gone up. I think, and there may have been some infrastructure in early schools, like in the 2000s.
I'm thinking of something more recently where it was explained to us that whatever supports or whatever are required, if in the future we wanted to go up, that it was a possibility.
But we can certainly look at that for sure.
I seem to recall that. I just can't recall what building design it was.
I think the ministry even recognizes now that building at the old benchmark is just not doable. And so the numbers that they're talking about during this round of capital priorities, or some suggested cost per square foot, are almost double what we've done before. And just to make sure everyone in the room is clear, we're not sure that's enough for Windsor, Ontario. And even though we've gone double because of the pressures we have with the battery plant and the bridge. So we always, as we always do, continue to work to get within budget, but it's not simple.
Supplemental to you, Madam Chair, I think the only thing I can think of that might fit what you're thinking about was when we were considering North Star and we didn't know whether we would get the extra tech things, but we were putting in electrical and some other kind of, maybe something for the footing to take machinery or something, whether or not we got it. and then we got it subsequent to that. But I remember something about that taking a chance.
Questions? Because I don't think we have an answer to your question. Anyone? Okay. Then, if there are no other questions, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in support? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. And I don't think it's new that we've always struggled with the ministry's funding formulas for construction. It's an ongoing problem that we've had for many years. Okay, number 2. L2 is the board lodging and transportation for Pelee Island. Does someone want to put that on? Trustee Cook, Trustee Leclerc. Question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could move all 3 of those from the policy committee together. Just
Do that. L2, 3, and 4. Mover and seconder. Okay, all 3 are on the floor. Have any questions on either L2, L3, or L4, community use of schools? No questions? Then we're ready for the vote. All those in support? They're all passed. Thank you very much. We have deferred L5 to November 7th. And as I gave you a heads up, I'm going to speak first to L6 because I've decided that I'm going to rule that motion out of order. It's just a decision I came to recently, so I have some remarks on that. So I was contacted by some trustees who felt that this motion should be ruled out of order based on it being an administrative function and not a matter of governance. So this caused me to have to stop and give careful consideration of the motion, and I just recently came to the conclusion that it is out of order to the relevance of our governance role. And my decision is based on the following. First, we currently have in place an administrative procedure entitled Correcting Employee Behavior and Progressive Discipline. It is a comprehensive procedure ranging from an informal step of coaching through a full range of progressive steps ending at termination of employment. I've reviewed the document, and I know that this document has been in place for many years, and throughout its stages of its first creation and then subsequent revisions, it has been vetted through our employee groups and in fact is referenced in some collective agreements. Secondly, we were recently provided with the Employment Systems Review, which took place in November and December, conducted by the Turner Consulting Group, and involved input from over 3,000 employees. The specific undertaking of this study was to provide a comprehensive review of written and unwritten, formal and informal employment policies, practices, and procedures of our board. Again, I took a review of that report, and in my review, looking at the report and the recommendations, the matter of progressive discipline and termination was not identified as a concern by staff. Lastly, I confirmed that our administrative procedure with regard to progressive discipline and termination, the procedures are fully in compliance with the Employment Standards Act, as well as human rights, as they should be. As far as the trustees' relationship with employees, we only have one employee, and that is the director. And everyone else who works for our board is an employee under the direction of the director. That's why we call you the director. Therefore, it is my conclusion that the process of progressive discipline and termination is entirely the role of administration and does not and should not involve trustees to undertake the creation of a governance policy. Therefore, my ruling tonight is that the motion is out of order, and of course it's subject to a challenge to my ruling.
I challenge the chair's decision.
It requires a seconder, and I'll turn it over to Trustee Cook to handle that.
We have a seconder, Trustee Burgess. So you do challenge the chair. So would you like to?
Yeah, I'd like to
Proceed.
speak. I've got a fair bit to say. We'll try to say as fast as I can. What exactly is out of order about a notice of motion that was presented in June and then deferred in September? The chair has had numerous months to discuss any potential concerns regarding my notice of motion as to why she believes it is out of order. Instead, I received a brief email of her intent only 2.5 hours before this meeting started at 5 p.m. Surely there was ample time to address with me her concerns. OPSPA's Good Governance, a book, talks all about our responsibilities, developing policies and procedures. A key responsibility of a school board is to develop and adopt policies that are based on the board's vision and that provide a framework for implementation of the vision. It is the responsibility of the board to monitor and evaluate how efficiently the board's policies are implemented and how effective they are in achieving the board's goals. We could go on. There's quite a bit here around our roles around policy. I think
All right, so right now you're speaking to the challenge and not the motion.
that was to the challenge. Sorry. I'd like to know why it's out of order when since June nobody has bothered to bring this as something that is out of order. And if you let me address it and then the trustees make that decision, what the chair shared could have been shared when we put it on the floor for discussion, and then trustees could choose which side they believe.
Yeah, well, I
in this case-
I think we better be, like, let's be careful of what side we believe. I've heard.
I have no problem
I've heard
with
your
that.
challenge. I've heard your challenge. So I'm going to let Chair Hatfield respond.
The trustee has referred to my concerns. And as I explained right from the top of my remarks, this wasn't in response to any personal concerns that I had. It was because recently trustees brought it to my attention, and that's when I started looking into it. It was at the request of other trustees, not because I personally had concerns. So I looked into it, and I came to a decision based on other trustees bringing it to my attention. I'd like to clarify that.
Trustee Leclerc?
Do that, though? I'd like to respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I won't be supporting the challenge to the chair. Having considered this quite a bit, the fact that we only have one employee and we have processes in place for reviewing the performance of that employee, I don't believe that progressive discipline of any employee that's a direct or indirect report to the director or any termination process that is related to a direct or indirect report to the director is anything other than an operational matter. I also am concerned that by delving into this, we already have a role in governance for situations where a termination has taken place and the individual wishes to grieve or appeal that process to the board to make a determination to either uphold or overturn a termination. We already have that role. I think if you look at it on its face, this is clearly a human resources issue, and human resources inherently is a operational issue. We have a new human resources director, who as superintendent, sorry. Yeah, congratulations. Not only did you have a meeting first thing in the morning in your own first meeting tonight, you got a promotion by the end of the day. Just kidding. I don't have any authority to promote you, by the way, because that's an operational issue that's of the director's responsibility. We have a human resources superintendent that I'm sure is very aware of progressive discipline processes and termination processes, and those are processes of operations. So again, I will not be upholding, or I will not support the challenge to the chair.
Thank you. Trustee Sipkar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, am I actually allowed to ask administration questions during a challenge?
This is strictly just to the challenge, to the chair.
Okay, well, I'll give my comments then. I'm struggling with it because the motion does say that a new policy and regulation be created, which those two things are in the purview of the trustees to do so. Regarding progressive discipline and termination process, my mind goes to, well, we have other policies and regulations that follow very strict ministry guidelines. I'm thinking of the anti-harassment. All of those are you know, I know that our administration takes direct verbiage. We have to from those other pieces of legislation. So when you mentioned, Trustee Hatfield, the ESA and the HR compliant, the employments, I would assume that that would be the foundation for this policy and regulation. And so the admin procedure that you also referenced, I thought, oh, that's great that we have that. What from there would be pulled into the policy and regulation that would be governing the way that we conduct ourselves? I don't see this, the way that I was reading this motion was not a usurping, but it was a supporting of the work and bringing forward pieces of legislation that are already in existence into policy and regulation so that we have that, because administrative procedures are not available to the public. Whereas I'm not an employment lawyer, I wouldn't know where to go. But if I could look at our progressive discipline termination process policies, if I don't have access to that admin procedure, that may be helpful. So I was going to ask what admin would think about this. And so I think because I can't ask administration, I'm leaning towards supporting the challenge because I think it's important to have a fruitful discussion, even if this motion doesn't pass. But I wanted to know more information. So I think that's where I'm at.
Anyone else with any comments? Trustee Burgess.
My understanding is an appeal is not debatable except that the appellant may give his reasons for doing so and the chair may state reasons before putting the question. So we've already had some debate. And the challenge is about not having any discussion and debate. So I just mark the irony.
I hear you. So we're having a debate on the challenge. We're not having a debate.
It's not debatable, ma'am.
Well, I mean, I just think that everybody's opinion is important on how they feel about the challenge. Trustee McKinley?
I've got plenty more to say, and I'd love to have the opportunity to say it, but I won't if we don't support. We don't.
Right now, we're just talking about the challenge.
I get that.
Okay.
So we need the challenge. I'm the one that's challenging, so
I understand that,
I will,
Trustee McKinley. I'm well aware. So my opinion is I will not be supporting this.
There are several boards with policies and regs.
I will not be supporting this. I will not support the challenge to the chair. So now we're going to move forward. Are there any other comments on the challenge to the chair?
Yeah.
Yes, Trustee Burgess.
It's not debatable, except by the appellant.
So, yep. So let's
So don't
let's
ask
have
for
the
any more
question.
questions.
Anyways, on the floor, all in favor? You- Can I, you guys are so, can I just finish my words before everybody tries to finish them for me, please? All in favor of the challenge to the chair? Does that make sense? It does.
Ma'am, I think the honestly is, will the ruling of the chair be sustained?
I'll do whatever so we can move on. Will the ruling be sustained? Right. 1, 2, 3. You get to vote.
Can I vote?
Yeah, 5. So it's sustained. There's 5-5.
So the challenge is defeated.
So your challenge is defeated.
If the vote is tied, the decision of the chair is sustained.
So now we are moving forward. And it's back in your hands.
Okay. L7.
I'm back on.
Yes, this is also
Yep.
the vice chair is going to do this one.
So L7, we have a notice of motion from Trustee Buckler that the board revisit the policy of our schools using the Caboto Club. Do I have a mover? Trustee Buckler? And a seconder? Trustee Leclerc. Would you like to speak to it?
Just briefly, just in light of the new decision made at the Caboto Club, I thought it might be good for us to revisit this policy as we had ceased using their facilities for the time, just to make it easier for our principals and our schools as they try to book events, and it gets harder and harder when there's no facilities available. So I just appreciate your support in allowing our schools to book their facilities again.
So I just want to say one thing to the mover. When I'm reading this, that the board revisit, that's throwing me off because what you're looking for is something different than revisiting. Maybe you can help
my
me.
apologies, because our recording secretary was not in the room, and I had already gotten rid of my agenda when I had made the motion. So I wasn't available I don't have my original motion. So however we need to word it, this is how it came out.
If I could, I was going to make an amendment already.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to make an amendment to actually change the word revisit to rescind from a past, and then if we can get a seconder, I'll speak to that.
Trustee Buckler will second that.
Yes, and I wanted to thank Trustee Buckler for bringing this forward. I too heard it on the news. I wasn't part of the original board that made that original motion, but I do believe it was the correct decision at the time, as I know that it was difficult for members of our community who didn't feel seen or well represented by using those facilities. Now that that policy has changed, and I've also had schools and principals reach out to me over the years asking for us to change that policy, because actually that Caboto is a very centrally located, well-priced institution, and I don't think that the original motion was ever intended to be something that was punishing or singling them out. It was really just to represent our values in the community, and now I think that that has changed in terms of their policy. So my comment was going to be that I didn't feel the language was strong enough, so I'm glad for the amendment to, so we can just rescind the policy and allow our schools to move forward. It might be too late for this year already for some of our schools, but I do think it's the right decision to be able to open up more options, particularly for our core schools. So I will be supporting the motion.
Right. So what it was in place prior was a motion. There was no policy in place. So what we're doing is rescinding a motion that was passed before, not a policy. Okay?
Sure, a friendly amendment could just be rescind the motion.
Thank you. Trustee Leclerc, then Trustee Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was a member of this board when we reluctantly reluctantly in the fact that Caboto Club was a integral part of our community. Everybody has connections to the Caboto Club in some fashion, and it was with difficulty that we made the decision to stop using the Caboto Club because of their policy that was not inclusive. So I welcome the change. I'm happy to support the return of using the facility because, like I said, they are a great part of our community.
Thank you. Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd like to read the original motion that was passed 2 boards ago. It would have been the board of 2014 to 2018. There were 3 declarations of conflict of interest declared at this motion, but the motion was passed, and it said that the GECDSB discontinue use of Caboto Club facilities after the 2017-18 school year until such time as said club allows women to enjoy rights as full voting members with opportunity to join the board of directors and when trustees approve of the reinstated use of said facilities. So I think the idea of rescinding the motion is a bit moot because inherent in the original motion is the fact that when the Caboto Club in their governance role changed their governance, it rendered our use of the facility, our disuse of the facility moot. So I don't even think we need a motion, but I will support the amended motion to rescind it as if it didn't appear because the facts have changed and their governance has put it in place. And so it lets us move forward on this until such time, and the time is now.
Thank you for that, Trustee Burgess. Any other comments? So I'm just going to quickly say I will support this, even though we don't have to. I just want to say, my opinion, it's a little bit too late. I'm glad it happened, but it's 2023. It should have happened a few years ago, quite a few years ago. Thank you. All in favor of this motion? That passes.
Thank you, Trustee Cook. Moving on to reports to be received. N1 is the report of the director.
Thank you. So it's been very busy, as it should be. Lots of learning taking place throughout the Greater Essex County District School Board. It's also been very productive and rewarding, and that there's lots to talk about. And shockingly, that it's just only been over a month and all of the great things that have been happening in our schools. So just last night, I was at Windsor City Council along with our coordinator of capital projects, Brad Gorey, to receive a Heritage Recognition Award for the work to transform the old International Playing Card Factory into our new James L. Dunn Public School, and it was an honor to receive that recognition on behalf of the board. Today, many of our staff were at Postabilities, a fundraiser for our Unemployed Help Center, where we have our community kitchen and our culinary program in conjunction partnership with UHC. And everybody enjoyed some lunch. Our students in our Specialist High Skills Major program took part in the creation of the pasta and their contribution, and they made a delicious penne dish topped with ratatouille and fresh Parmesan cheese. Also today, more than 260 students from Roseville, Ford City Public School, Riverside Secondary School, and Tecumseh Vista Academy participated in Rose City Safety Conference. They learned about accident prevention from a number of the speakers, and they learned about robotics, machine safety, and some mental health awareness. Last month, we held a ceremony here at the board office simultaneously at our schools to raise the Every Child Matters flag, which flew for a week until after Truth and Reconciliation Day of September 30th. One of our students, Autumn McKetchner, spoke at our flag raising about what reconciliation means to her. It was very moving for those of us that were in attendance. Throughout the week prior to Truth and Reconciliation Day, the students were involved in learning about the meaning of the occasion with activity, words, and art, and they constructed heart gardens, held assemblies, and participated in various learning opportunities. At Vincent Massey High School, they held their annual multicultural festival in September and enjoyed and learned about each other's cultures and respecting the diversity within their school and within our system. Our GEC, Parent Involvement Committee, recently invited all of the chairs and vice chairs of each school council to an event to learn about what GECPIC is all about and what they do. It was also an opportunity to share ideas about things such as volunteer recruitment and about fundraising. More than 300 secondary students from a number of our high schools took part in the Manufacturing Day activities. And Manufacturing Day is an initiative aimed at sharing technology, career opportunities in modern manufacturing with our students. A big part of the expertise in coding, students from Roseville Public School recently had a visit from the Code Ninjas, who gave them some hands-on computing experience. And then STEM seems to be a very prominent theme in our schools lately and a priority with the Ministry of Education. 17 teams from our high schools took part in the annual Science Olympiad at the University of Windsor, which is a competition that challenges groups of students to solve some science problems and cover a full range of the subject. Our students are also learning to handle the world's most complex computer, their own brain. From our special assignment teacher for student well-being, Jody Nolan, hundreds of them have been given some mindfulness training to help them deal with stress and anxiety. Many of our students work out some of their stress with a good workout, and one of the most popular activities this time of the year is cross-country. Theater is also a great place to relax, and the students from Kingsville District High School recently went to Stratford to see some of the best. They attended the festival's production of King Lear. And at Gore Hill Public School, they've been working on making character education a commitment in their classrooms and throughout the school community. Everybody is quite proud of their work to build a safe and inclusive place to learn and work at Gore Hill. And I'd just also like to recognize that this week is Local Government Week. So thank you to our trustees for putting your names on the ballots, and for our student trustees for putting your names forward to be elected. And we know that it is a commitment for you to serve in the best interest of public education, and not an easy role as a trustee or student trustees. So on behalf of myself and the students and the staff, we thank you very much for your service and for the community that you serve in public service for our students and for improving student achievement and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, do we have any questions of the director's report? No? Okay, the OPSPA delegate, Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. A verbal report, and just a reminder that we have a regional meeting on November 4th, and that if anybody wants to attend, it's encouraged that you have overnight accommodations the night before, because the meeting will start at, I think it's 9, and it's in Kitchener, so it's an early start, and there is going to be some professional development, and it's a joint meeting with our Central West trustees as well. We're actively involved right now in some feedback on some policies. The province is asking for input. I bring your attention to that. The deadline is October 19th, so very imminent. Please look at the website, OPSO's website, and it'll direct you to that feedback. It's important that we give our input to things like director's performance appraisal template and accommodations and Bill 98 and all of these things. So it's important. I was going to mention Local Government Week. Thank you for doing that, Madam Director. I appreciate that. That's it. We have some OPSA meetings coming up at the end of November that are advocacy days at Queen's Park, and we are looking for really focusing in on our meetings with our MPPs. Our discussion tonight on our item about capital priorities puts a fine point on why capital priorities always makes it to the top of the list in our direct advocacy with MPPs, and I would really appreciate it before whoever goes. I'm slated, I booked a room, but I mean, we have an organizational meeting in the middle, so I think it's really important to focus in on what we want to advocate for strongly, because it did move the needle last year, and it has every time we have had those advocacy days. So please consider that, and I really would appreciate some input. And that'll end my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the OPSPA report? Seeing none, we're going to move to M3, which is the chair's report. It's a very brief one. I just wanted to mention that I attended that breakfast this morning with the director, with our new superintendent of HR, and with the leaders of our employee groups. And this morning was a very positive time with many of the union presidents or representatives expressing positives, which was nice to hear. But in it all, there was still a concern about staff shortages, and particularly I acknowledge that we had received the email from Tyler from ESS president about that particular group, and I assured him that trustees were very sensitive and aware of the situation, and Tyler just wanted to be assured that we would continue our advocacy role in that regard. So I thought it would be appropriate if maybe by consensus we would like to send off a letter from our board expressing those concerns. They haven't gone away. We have sent other letters in the past, but I think, we're seeing how staff shortages are already affecting our classrooms, and it's only the second month of school. So I'm asking if trustees would, by consensus, agree to once again remind the ministry that this is a serious concern. I think I have reported in the past where the minister has recognized that concern in the infrequent phone calls with the chairs of the boards. Everybody across the province, the chairs have all raised that with the minister, and he's tried to address it, but with no solutions. And I don't see any solutions coming down the pipe anytime soon. So if we could, by consensus, just say that this board still remains very concerned, and maybe ask, what kind of solutions the ministry would have for us in this regard. Trustee Burgess?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that, and certainly have consent for that. My concern is that it's another letter, and if we don't kick up the language in it, because I think it's a crisis. I think that not only is it a crisis for us, it's for our families, and the outside agencies in our community are inextricably linked to the shortage of staff. So if we could get some other outside agencies to agree with us that it's not us just whining in some corner, that it's a crisis, and it's been ongoing, and we're at a point now where everybody in the community who deals with all of the concerns that aren't being met can vouch for that.
I would say that even our own PSSP employees also would share in that, in supporting that, because their numbers of cases of students being impacted has risen dramatically as well. So we could reach out to some outside organizations, but I mean, I know that all our employee groups share this critical concern, but even within our own people, we can have...
Well, I mentioned it because we're going to send it to a Minister of Education, but so many other ministries are involved. And if it needs funding for outside agencies so we can refer, if we need more peoples in self-governing, bodies to get more bodies graduating in all the disciplines that we need to support, because there's a shortage. There's just a plain shortage. There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of, so my thing is, so if we can distinguish it from just another letter, and if we can get some of those communities, agencies, that'll help us.
I don't disagree with that, because all the years that I've been a trustee, I've said that there's been such a lack of coordination with the provincial government, with the other agencies that also serve children and should be concerned about what's going on in schools, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. So I would be happy to widen the scope of this letter to address all of that. And I understand that it's another letter, and usually we don't get much of a response, but I think we have to keep sending them. And I don't have a problem with that, and I thank the trustees for the consensus on this. And that ends my report. Thank you. Sorry. Trustee question period. I'll go around the room. Do we have questions? Sorry. Questions? Questions on this side? No? Notice of motion? Oh, sorry. Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm wondering, we've had in the world situation, how are we explaining and supporting students who are from lands, cultures, and religions who are presently involved in wars and conflict? It happens to be, it's not just a little skirmish here, a skirmish here. We're actually talking about two very active wars right now, and we have a lot of families that are just really hit hard. How are we explaining? It's a current event. It has to be explained in school. How are we supporting these kids and families?
I'm going to ask the director to address that.
Thank you for your question, and through you, Madam Chair. We have done a considerable amount of communication with our administrators, as well as with the staff in the schools, both for the staff and their well-being, because they're experiencing it as well. With our families, certain schools have experienced more challenges than others, and we've worked closely with them to provide supports for whatever it is that they need, whether they may need social work on site, if they needed interpreters from our Swiss workers to be in the school to help to explain to some of the students some of the things that they're experiencing. Have sent several emails out continually as things have updated about what's been going on around the world, to pay particular attention to the fact that perhaps if a student's disengaging, if a student is separating themselves from others, or if the student just isn't attending school, to make sure that we're very aware and that we are reaching out to make sure that they do feel welcome and safe at school, and to have extra eyes on just in case something may happen, that we're prepared to deal with those.
Any other questions from trustees? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to notices of motion. Trustee McKinley? Sorry, what?
She thought you were at announcements.
Oh, sorry. Okay, no notices of motion. Okay, now Trustee McKinley, announcements.
Yes, thank you. I'm very proud to say that for the 21st year, the Cereal Box Challenge continues at Talbot Trail, Southwood, Central, Bellwood, McWilliam, and Glenwood Public Schools. They will all once again be collecting boxes of cereal to support many of our schools and also other community organizations that support students as well. So it runs from November 3rd to the 24th, with pickups the following week. And Sharp Bus has agreed again to pick up two of our schools that have, a couple hundred bags, leaf bags full of cereal, and Doug Robinson at 3 Aces will pick up this cereal from the other 4 schools. And and I also did get some donations for leaf bags from the President's Choice Superstore. So I'm very happy to announce that this is the 21st year. It still astounds me sometimes. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Anything on this side? Trustee Burgess, announcement?
Thanks, Madam Chair. This Thursday, October 19th, is Great Big Crunch Day. And I'm encouraging everybody to use hashtag Great Big Crunch. Get your hands on some apples, hand them out, take some pictures, encourage everyone in all of our schools to get that picture and to encourage healthy eating, especially apples in the fall.
Sounds good to me. Anything over on this side under announcements? Then I just have a quick one. Oh, sorry, Colin.
Just like to wish everyone a happy Halloween as it comes up and remind everyone to stay safe out there if you're going trick-or-treating. Look after everyone and have a great holiday.
Great, thank you. And just a quick one from me. We did defer item L5, and I would just like to, because the policy committee did do some substantial work on that policy, I would just say to everyone that you have an extra 2 weeks to look at it, and that if you do have any questions, that perhaps you should contact Trustee Sipkar or the director's office, because it is a big piece of work. So you have an extra 2 weeks on that one. So that would be helpful if before the meeting, if you wanted to speak to Trustee Sipkar or contact the director's office. And with that, we've come to the end of our agenda. So I would like to thank everyone for their time this evening, and I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.